Hi friends, Sarah here with the Holy Mess, and this is day 12 of the Faith Over Fear series. Today we have a short Bible reading, but so impactful when we recognize that some of the really tough things in our life, God still intends them for good. So before we read the passage, I wanted to check in and see how you're doing. As I'm recording these videos live, we are under quarantine, and things are shifting and changing depending on where you live in the country and in the world. I live in New York State. We will still be under restrictions for a couple more weeks for sure. And then I think here in the next few days, we're really going to learn what happens next. Will our kids go back to school? We don't know for sure of that. Will we continue to have restrictions? Will those things change? Depending on where you are in the country, you might have more freedoms now, or you will very soon have more freedoms. And how are you feeling about that? That gives all of us, I think, mixed feelings. And I think as different parts of the country have different restrictions, that's a little bit hard to wrap our mind around. I think up until now it's been difficult, but we've all been kind of in it together. And now that's going to be changing. So I would love to hear from you in the comments how you're doing, how are things going to be rolling out in your state, and how do you feel about that, and what changes will that bring for you? Okay, so we are using this handout of the Faith Over Fear series. You can get it for free on my website, theholymess.com. And lots of us are using this Bible reading notebook, which you can get. I've got it really inexpensive right now, just a few dollars. So today's reading is from Genesis 50, verse 20. And let me go ahead and read that. And it's where Joseph is talking to his brothers, and he says, "You intended to harm me, but God intended it for good, to accomplish what is now being done, the saving of many lives." So a quick recap of the story of Joseph. There's lots in there, actually, in the book of Genesis, but he was a favorite of his father among his brothers, and his father made him a coat of many colors. His brothers were jealous. They almost killed him, and at the last minute sold him into slavery. He ends up going to Egypt, where he endures many hardships. He's thrown in jail wrongfully, but yet also God continues to bless him. He is able to interpret the king's dreams. He rises up in power. He has a vision that there will be great famine, and because he is in power under the king, they save back a portion of all of the harvest of the land. And so the rest of the area is in this intense famine, and Egypt isn't. And Joseph's family ends up coming to Egypt, and Joseph recognizes them, and they don't even recognize him. And then this is part of that conversation where his brothers are coming to him, and Joseph reveals himself, and there's more to that with him, like putting a cup in Benjamin's bags and things like that. But we get to this verse, and Joseph is talking to his family, who basically sold him off to be a slave or be killed. And he says, this is what Joseph says, and I'm reading from verse 19 too. "But Joseph said to them, 'Don't be afraid. Am I in the place of God? You intended to harm me, but God intended it for good, to accomplish what is now being done, the saving of many lives. So then, don't be afraid. I will provide for you and your children.' And he reassured them and spoke kindly to them." So we see how Joseph was so gracious and forgiving to his family, and how he saw that these intense hardships he went through, that God intended it for good, the saving of many lives. And another place in the New Testament where we as Christians get this reassurance is Romans 8:28, that God will work all things for good in the life of the Christian, for those who love God and follow him according to his purpose. This is a great reassurance that we have as Christians, but this is also really hard, because this is all those really hard things we go through. This is pain, this is tragedy, this is abuse, this is, things that we continue to wrestle with. This is things in the world like this coronavirus that we're dealing with right now. And, I, for many years, was a foster parent, and, working with these really difficult situations where children were being abused abused. And we look at passages like this and we wrestle with it. I think it's really important to recognize God never wants sin to occur. God is not the cause of sin. We are the cause of sin, and we live in a sinful, broken world. But what we cling to is the promise that somehow, some way, God will work it for good. We don't always understand it. And I think it's important to see, too, that sometimes we don't see it in this lifetime. God sees this bigger picture. Sometimes we do. Sometimes we do see the ways that God works things for good, but sometimes we might never see it in this lifetime. But we trust. We cling to it and we trust. And I would love to hear from you in the comments if you have had a time where you have seen very clearly how God turned around something that you thought was really painful and hard and brought it to good. I would love for you to share it with us, because those are such an encouragement to all of us. I've definitely seen this in my life. A big one is my weight loss. That is a very painful part of my life, being overweight for so much of my life, having food issues, having food addictions, but yet I see today how God has brought that to good, how I've been able to work with other women, help other women, share my story in a way that helps people. I see that God has brought that to good. But it's still not necessarily what I would have chosen. It's still hard for me. It's still a challenging part of my life. But yet I do also see how God has brought it to good. I talked about foster care. We have 2 amazing children that we've adopted. We were foster parents to 35 other children. God would never want these children to be harmed. I don't believe that, but I do see how God has brought it for good. So again, I would love to hear from you in the comments if there's a really tough situation that you have been through, and how you see God has brought that to good. But even if you don't see yet how God has brought something to good, we can trust that He is at work in those situations. The other thing I wanted to make sure I brought up today is something I've been thinking about and pondering with this verse is I've made a lot of really big mistakes in my life. I have really messed up things. I have hurt other people. I have spoken words that I, oh my goodness, wish I could take back. And this verse has reassured me today that God is working in those people's lives too. And so even though I really messed up, maybe I said something I shouldn't have, I made a huge mistake, I can look at that and say, I'm going to trust, I'm going to do everything in my power if I need to apologize or make things right, of course. But I'm also going to trust that somehow God will work that for good. And so I can let go of some of that and trust that God has it all in His control. Okay, so that is our verse for today. Again, you can get the Bible reading plan on theholymess.com, and I would love to hear from you in the comments about how God has maybe taken a situation that you've been through that's so difficult or are going through currently and bringing it to good. This is for you, Janice. Mwah. She said that she was waiting for my kiss at the end of every video, so I will make sure and include that. Want you guys to know that I love you, I'm praying for you, and I'm so glad that we're all praying together and reading together in this community. Have a great day. Love you. Bye-bye.